perfect world, what would be like the ultimate success story to come from that?
Giving songwriters the ability to do this if they truly love it and this is what they want to do, like them wake up and go, my job is to write songs and I don't need to worry about everything else, because I think it's so powerful to everybody listening to music, you know. And I think the good songwriters say, I love writing songs, but I have bills to pay and I have family and I fiscally can't do it. I don't want that to happen, because I think it's like what internally pumps my fire is listening to these songwriters and this music come out that's incredible. And I think it's an industry that all these creatives come together and inspire others people to do what they want to do. For me, there's not this whole like take over whatever. It's that whole thing of I want songwriters to wake up and feel happy that they're doing what they love every day.
So I'm here today with some pretty cool dudes, Kevin and Richard.
Yes.
Recently, somehow came across this really cool app called We Should Write Sometime. And as a songwriter in Nashville,
You're the first one I met. In 4 years.
Yeah. Oh gosh. As a songwriter, I found the app and I was just kind of looking through it, wondering what is this thing? And I thought it was pretty darn cool. Basically, I would say it's kind of like Tinder for songwriters, basically.
Got it.
So you sign up, you put all your info, and then you kind of just browse other writers in the area, and you swipe left or right.
Yep.
Yep. If you want to try and co-write sometime. So tell me, I guess, more about the hows, the whys, the who's,
Yeah.
the details.
I mean, we can go backstory, just kind of how we came up with it. And I think something that Richard and I both have a passion for is the music and songwriting world community, and I think we look at them as the lifeblood of music. And how do we make their lives easier and help them do things that they want to do every day, which is write songs, and how do we help them do that? And I think there was something that through our story and journey we found kind of a gap in how that's done, and figured let's put my energy and effort into what the other half of what I love, which is the tech space, and that's throughout that time of just going out is when I met this clown, and he's been nothing but amazing in terms of not only his story, who he is and what he's trying to do, but I instantly became, like anybody that's ever met him, instantly drawn to him and saying, you know, how can I be a part of whatever you're doing, but also help you with your mission and nonprofit, which could be a whole other segment of this for quite some time.
The synopsis of my story, to keep it in the realms of like what this app is one of our main programs for the nonprofit Creative Vets that I co-founded is that we bring combat disabled veterans to Nashville to write with pro writers. So a big part of my job was to recruit songwriters, to go out to writers' rounds, to find them, to figure out how to connect and which places I needed to go to.
Yeah.
And I found out real fast that there's actually a problem with connecting. Most people, especially if you're an introvert, you can go to a bar and you can sit there and be like, well, I know everybody's in here a songwriter, but I can't actually go up and ask them because that's just not my personality.
Yeah.
And so, but then you have those people that are just overly like, hey, here's my number, let's write. And, but we wanted to be able to have an app that kind of blended all those kind of different people, but also that took away the time that they felt like they had to go to the bar till 3 a.m. and just wait to meet someone.
Yeah.
Because now with this app, when you're on it, we could be in this meeting, we could take a 5-minute break and I could set up like 3 songwriting sessions while we sit here and talk, and I come back to you. And so my path from the nonprofit to this was, it was actually when I met my wife, and I didn't want to spend time out recruiting songwriters anymore, and I thought, what if there's a way I could just sit on my couch and find songwriters to help write with these veterans? And it just hit me, because we always talk about how songwriting is like dating. When it comes to, you could be best friends with the person, you could sit in a room with them and be the worst writers ever. And then you can have someone that you hate and you guys just click so much when you write and you're like, I hate that we're so good at writing together. So because it was the idea of like this was dating, and because the app and people are getting so used to the swipe left, swipe right, even I think Bumble came out with like Bumble Friends or Bumble Best Friends, and there's a leadership one too. I forget, what was it? Shaper? Shaper is also about finding other people in your field that you can connect with, swipe left, swipe right. So we knew it was a trend that we get behind because it's so easy that people are starting to understand it. And it kind of takes away that tension of, you don't have to, if you saw my music on the app, you may not come up to me in person, but once you see it, you'll swipe right on me to be like, oh, I want to write with this person. Then when I get to hear your music, I get to swipe right after I see what kind of skills you have.
Yeah.
And then we could set up a message and be like, hey, let's write over here at this time. Let's go to the workshop, safe place to write, where they have a 24-hour writing room. And then we set up a writing session.
Yeah. So, okay, if somebody swipes right, like oh,
Yep.
look, there's Kevin McCarthy. Woo! Then what happens?
Should probably swipe right.
Then what happens if you both, is it
So
basically
yeah,
the same? Like,
so it kind of takes that whole sense of like, hey, no one will know which way you swiped unless, say, you swiped right and then the other person swiped right on you. Meaning you both mutually say, I like your genre, your style. I'm listening to some of your SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube. I like what you're doing. You're the skill set that I'm looking at, whether I need a lyricist, top line, or melody. So you're able to vet that person before you even swipe left or right. But if you both swipe right, then you're instantly connected, can start sending up messages and say, hey, next Thursday look good for you, great. And then that way you're almost saying, I know what I'm really getting into before I step into that writer's room.
yeah.
Because this just makes it a lot more efficient of knowing who you're actually going to co-write with.
Yeah.
The latest person to join our team, Maddie, who came from Belmont, and she's a songwriter, and she's really going to help make sure that profiles are set up the right way to get the most swipes, because making sure there's a bio talking about kind of the genre and styles that you like, making sure there's links to any music you may have out there, and it's okay if you don't, just if you're getting started, but I think that plays a little piece into it, but it's one of, hey, we just launched, May of last year, haven't really done anything massively on the promotion marketing front just because we're waiting for the right features to get out there so that people get the first experience that they expect and say, I expect notifications and I expect these type of things. But so we're still kind of so early that as we add more songwriters all over the US, and we launched in Canada and Australia and the UK, and then implemented the ability to geolocate. So if someone was in LA but wanted to set up rights in Nashville for 6 weeks down the road, you can hop on there and say, hey, I'm going to be in Nashville in 6 weeks. Let's set up some co-writes and make that a lot more efficient versus what we hear a lot of people doing now, which is literally flying out here, flying to set, like meeting people, networking, to set up co-writes for another date down the road.
Yeah.
Seems to be a little inefficient. But
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually connected. There was a girl from New Jersey who was geolocated here because in her profile she said, I'll be in Nashville November 5th through 8th looking to find rights. And then so I was like, well, this is awesome because this is the first person I've seen built in their profile that was planning a trip out here. And so I connected with her. And I knew I was going to be out of state, but I still wanted to make sure her experience was good and wanted to see how it happened, like how everything went down. And so after I came back, I messaged her on the app again just saying, how was your trip to Nashville? She was like, it was amazing. I found 3 other songwriters from this app and we connected and wrote songs. And I was like, that's amazing. So it's so cool that we can actually provide that. And so like the new songwriter comes to town, once they touch down, all of a sudden they have 200, 300, 400 songwriters in Nashville that already at their fingertips that they could at least dive into and start going through their social medias. They can connect via, they put on their Instagram, their Facebook, they could see that and they can go through and connect with them that way. They connect them by swiping right and setting up rights. So it's awesome.
Do you notice that Nashville is sort of bigger right now than other places that?
Sure. Yeah, and a big part of that has to come back to when we launched, right? And I think it was being very hands-on in terms of talking to our friends, and especially his network from his nonprofit. His network is amazing when it comes to getting in front of big time songwriters just to get feedback, right? And I think as we launch, this is really initially geared towards the amateur looking to set up a lot of their co-writes, just moved to town, looking to expand their network, what have you. But getting feedback initially from a lot of his network and some of mine of let's watch them use the app and where are they pressing that maybe we need to change the design or look of it. But really getting that beta test feel, that was all done in Nashville. And so word of mouth organically obviously is going to help grow that. So we are doing a lot of efforts and planning to do a lot of efforts in just big songwriting cities across not only the U.S. but
Yeah.
the other countries that we're launched in. But primarily, most users are in Nashville.
I have a pretty big connection here in Nashville, but I didn't want to go to everyone and be like, hey, there's this new app, spread the word, because like Kevin said, is that if you have an app that's not doing what your users want it to do, then it's going to fail. So we're going out there and making sure that all the things that are in place are what the writers want, and we can get that feedback. So if someone randomly gets on in Montana, downloads the app, and there's something that they don't like about it, they don't know how to reach us because they don't know us, then it's a little bit harder of a problem. But we know that every person that we go to here in Nashville and say, hey, this is our app, check it out, download it, tell me what you think, tell me what your fans think, and we get that direct feedback and then update it and make changes.
Yeah. Do you guys have any sort of future plans or things you want to add on to the app?
Our roadmap's pretty extensive. I mean, I think we have like phase 7 now, and we're on phase like 1.3. Okay. But again, I think it's all predicated on how do we help songwriters, and then how do we help maybe publishers, right, find great talent of up and coming songwriters. I think like any roadmap, we see it a certain way, but it's all again predicated on there may be things we don't even know that may come in the next 3-6 months that we're like, wow, this is a big need that we didn't even know was out there. Let's maybe pivot a little bit and go that route. There's we could talk 3 hours on what we think could happen. But again, I think what we always talk about is like, how do we just make sure that we're taking care of the songwriters? And everything we do, it's making their lives easier so they can do what they love. But roadmap to us is ambitious and pretty high, but I think with the conversations we've had and some of the people in the industry that we've kind of talked to, there's a lot of support for it. We're anxious to see, because I think just from my earlier experience, there's been a lot of new music tech things, and it's those really hardworking songwriters that are like, I'm supplementing it, doing these other things because I love this so much, and I'm just like, well, how do we help you love this even more all the time? But yeah, I think it's one of those where helping them, but also helping this guy and his nonprofit. I think he's a big inspiration for me personally, just because he's helping save lives with a nonprofit. So how can I help the guy saving lives, right? And I think that's something that helps me get up every morning and be like, let's do it.
Tell us again the name of your nonprofit.
So it's called Creative Vets, creativevets.org. And like I said, we bring veterans who've never done songwriting before here to tell their story for the first time. So it's been super impactful, and we've had, excuse me, Darryl Worley sat down with a veteran, Keenan Smith, huge songwriters like Bridget Tatum, Phil Lamons, Johnny Bulford, Mark Irwin, just tons of people. We've had over 80 writers take time out of their busy schedule of trying to write the next #1 and sit down with a veteran to help them tell their story for the first time.
And so the app is We Should Write Sometime.
Yep, the Nashville Handshake.
That's right. Apple Store, Google Play, so it's out there. Download now. I mean, we are always looking for that feedback, right? I think at this stage, that's critical for the success of it. And now I think we are primed and ready to really start getting it out there any way possible. And so I think that's again, at the end of the day, it's what can we do to make your lives better as a songwriter, and so we want to hear it. And so swipe right? Swipe right? Thank you.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
I love what you're doing.
I love what you're doing. I think behindnashville.com, go check it out. Yes, this is one goal. Thank you for what you're doing. And let us know how we can help you. And thanks for using the app.
Yeah.
Anything else?